Hello, and welcome to the Spooky Chris podcast. My name is Chris Ringler. I am your aforementioned Spooky Chris. Well, happy October, and I hope you are enjoying it as the air cools and visions of jack-o'-lanterns dance in your head. I thought I would try something new today, kind of a thought experiment, and we'll see. I have an idea to go further with this, so we'll see. So I wanted to kind of get into like who is, in the idea of kind of just talking out kind of some horror icons and kind of what makes them tick. And in this case, the one that really stood out to me, and I was talking to a couple people about this, and I thought about it, was Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger, who's lots and lots to talk about with it. People have examined and this and that. We've seen him and talked about him and this and that. But I thought of something that I haven't really heard people dig into a whole lot. And I'm sure, nothing is new under the sun. But this a thought occurred to me. I never heard anyone talk about it. So, and it gets to the heart of what an insidious monster he is, when you think especially the slasher icons, but horror icons. Like, he is hands down one of the most evil and vile of all of them, and not for the obvious. So let's dive in. So Freddy Krueger, and they have if you watch series, they get into his background and stuff, and it's interesting to kind of humanize a monster. And it's, especially as a storyteller, I get that, because there's part of you that really wants that. It's kind of this, it's kind of you being a clever Dan, like, oh, I know how this guy's ticks, and I'm going to tell you. And it's that curiosity. It's kind of, you look at the Rob Zombie Halloween, the same thing, Michael Myers. On one hand, you don't need to know on either one of those gentlemen. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why they do what they do. They do it, and that's what matters. That's the why we care. You don't care why the star sports athlete is great. You care that they are great. But it is interesting to dig into it and to get kind of a thing, in that and it doesn't work with Freddy, but well, I don't know. It sort of and sort of doesn't. They mythologize him, but then they also kind of like bring him back down to earth and kind of, I don't know, ruin it. But with Michael Myers and the Rob Zombie one, it's interesting because they give you reasons of the things that made him, but I think there's still so much of a mystery of what he is. Beyond being kind of in an abusive household with a mom that kind of, stuck around in an abusive household and stuff. So it's interesting on that one, but the Freddy one, and with Freddy, it gets really messy, because he's the bastard son of 1,000 men is what they say. And essentially, with the whole story of his mother was a nun who had been mistakenly trapped in like a criminally insane, an award for the criminally insane, which all of it's kind of is very like, really, they just locked all these guys up together? Okay, whatever. And then she was sexually assaulted, and through all of that, somewhere down the line, he came to be. And then in another film, they show him. I was like, at times I'm trying to think, because I remember like one was Roseanne Barr, and it was. Oh my gosh, I forget her husband at the time's name. But yeah, like, so they kind of show that he had kind of a crummy, middle class, like abusive childhood. And that kind of, the mythology of the bastard son of 1,000 men is interesting, because it is a mythology. It is very kind of like, it seems very far-fetched, but very horrific. So it's interesting. But then you kind of get into, like I say, when you make him a human again, it gets real messy. He's just a guy from the the suburban 50s and just had a crappy family life with these adoptive parents. But it's interesting. They're interesting asides, but I don't know. I don't know that it matters. I don't know if it didn't really help get to know Freddy. It didn't really help you learn anything. And it feels like it should. I mean, so much of all of these series is really, frankly, but like the Nightmare on Elm Street series, I wish, and there's no way to do it. I wish they could have plotted out kind of a plan of attack, like, on some bigger series, like, oh, well, we wrote a Bible for this. This is what everything is in this. And I wish they could have done that with Freddy. And again, I get it. Like, these are B movies. These are horror projects. No one's thinking that far. You made one movie and you're like, oh, cool, made some money. And then if you make some money, they're like, go make another one. Like, the same but different. Just run that back. But with Freddy, and this is where I really want to dig in, what makes him so terrible is, let's put all of the cards on the table. Freddy Krueger was some manner of maintenance man for a school, which is, he must have, you can extrapolate that he took that kind of a position because of his inclinations, we'll say, and it put him in close proximity to children. He was a child abuser and a child murderer, and it's what would have been interesting, instead of like, oh yeah, he's just a dude just doing dude stuff, and it would have been interesting to see, like, if he had other jobs, or as a, like, what led him to where he ends up, where we meet him. And again, like, that's probably too much. We don't need a flippin' biography about the guy. There's an aspect of mystery that you need in horror. Once it's and we saw this in the new Alien TV series. As you bring the monster out into the daylight, it can still be horrifying, but it's not the same. It's not horrifying the same way. And it works. It still works, but it's what you put into that darkness with the creature is what makes it so horrifying. And so, not knowing, that's, like really, and we're curious little animals, we humans, but what makes our monsters monstrous is that, and that's why, Lovecrafts are so scary, is that they don't care. They have no investment in humanity. They have no care for humanity. It's not even, you're in our way, you're food, you are just there. And they're just like, and they pluck you up and eat you, or they wipe you away without a thought. Some manipulate, some destroy, some devour. But essentially, when it comes down to it, we are pieces for them to move about. And we can't understand them. And what makes our monsters, and it's a very fine line between understanding them to a degree that we can go, oh, I can understand how that person works. So I don't like that. I don't like being in their head. Or kind of getting kind of an idea of like, oh, yeah, no, I can see why they're a monster. Learning about them. Why do people watch like true crime stuff and the murder burger stuff? It's because they want to know what makes a serial killer tick. It's that kind of thought experiment, like, could I do this? Could I be a murderer? Could I do these things? And you never know. So you go through these things, but you want to, like, it's interesting because digging into the craziness of someone like that, I'm like, gosh, what makes you from someone who comes from whatever your background is to the leap of, I want to destroy, like, I just want to destroy. But you also need to mix that with the unknown and the not knowing. So with a character like Freddy, it'd be interesting to see, because I don't feel like his job at the school would have been, like, that's not when he picked up his habit. So somehow, somewhere in his history, and maybe in because the first episode of the Freddy's Nightmares, it was about Freddy. It was kind of his trial or something. Maybe they get into it in that, or maybe in the you know, there's been, I think, books and comics and all this stuff. So maybe somewhere they get into this. But like, so that wasn't his first first time to the dance. So what led him to, the school where everything kind of came to a head. But, so we know what he is. He is a child killer, but he's also a child abuser. And they always soft pedal that, and I get it. That is one of the things I actually really appreciated about the remake is they just came and said it. He was a child abuser. Like, he doesn't just kill children, he abused them. And I think there's a strong distinction, and it shows what kind of a thing he was. And I understand people you don't want to think about it. You don't want to think about children going through that, and you don't want to spend more time in that graveyard than you have to. But you kind of have to go there, at least a little. And looking at the series, the fact that they kind of like let that stuff go really was, I mean, it diminished the character to a degree. Like, you don't have to sit there and have him, show him potentially abusing or this or that, or exploit that, but you can't forget what it is. It is part of the base of what he is, and you have to have that. But so you take him, and parents find out, and they get their revenge. And here is where, like, the horribleness of what he is, kind of, what I haven't seen people talk about. Imagine the horrific gaslighting of Freddy Krueger, who knows what he is, who knows what he has done. He was righteously murdered by the parents and families of these children who were murdered and disappeared and assaulted, and he was killed. After going on trial, I forget this, he went on trial, he got away with it. And then so they went and they got revenge, and then he's such a monster that he returns from the dead for revenge for being killed for assaulting and murdering children. That is so bonkers. That's so bonkers to wrap your head around, and it's not something they've ever really dug into, because that is crazy. And again, it's not even just a random revenge of killing the parents. It's killing the children of the parents. So he is such a kind. He's of a kind that is like, oh, it's not enough that I've done this. And then you think you get to judge me and punish me. No. I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it to you guys again. And I'm going to keep, and then when that whole batch is done, I'm going to find other children. And, and they change what children are. They're young adults, quote unquote teenagers that look like they're in their 20s. And that's nothing, something they never got into in the films. And it's so horrifying. And it's so just like, this just blows my mind to think of that with that character. And it's such a bummer that they allowed, kind of his character to kind of become dumbed down into this kind of like, oh, hey, do you want a snack? Yucky, yucky, yucca. And then he cuts somebody's finger off and feeds it to him. Kind of that kind of stuff. Like, he was always, I think a part of what he is, and I'm sure it was what drew children to him, is like a quote unquote funny guy, but like very mean-spirited kind of Joker-esque jokes, and kind of like, hey, let me get your attention and blah, blah. And what he is now, the jokes are always at the expense of the victim, and they're always, some kind of a violence or pain. In early ones, you kind of saw like, oh, he chopped his fingers off or took his face off, or, that kind of stuff. Gags, and they're all gags. And he is much like the Joker, he is telling jokes for an audience of one. He's doing these things for himself and his own amusement. Everything is fetishistic for his own amusement and for his own laugh. And so, and that's why you get the elaborate kind of like playing in the dreamscapes and stuff. And he kind of fools with people, and he kind of like, oh, you think you're powerful here? It's like, I run the show. I'm going to be your puppet master. I'm going to, control this. I'm going to do that. He lets the kids think that they have some power over their dreams and over the space. And they could, but they don't fully understand him, what makes him tick, and the kind of like 5D of the dreams. It's beyond even like it's not just the what you see here, taste, smell, like the senses, not just the senses. It's beyond that. It's about what you intuit and can but then into imagination and how strong that is, and then it's how strong of your belief in your imagination and like those, like the armaments you make. And he worships an altar of nothing. He believes in nothing, and his power comes from this rage, this holy rage that they had the audacity to kill him, and it's just it seems like it's unending. Where characters like a Jason can kind of be taken aback, or you can kind of get to a sort of a soft spot. Like Freddy is just at an all-you-can-eat buffet, and he'll never not be hungry. Like he has become his appetite, and like that's all there is to him. And everything, he is kind of like a shark, and that he will just keep doing it until they stop him. And it's real interesting, and I hope whenever they finally do more Nightmare on Elm Street movies, because eventually they're going to, like they've got to eventually, something. I hope that they allow to. I mean, you don't want to wallow in the darkness too much. Like it's those movies are supposed to be kind of roller coastery, but I mean they can be a dark ride. It was funny. I saw like a comment today about, because there's news about the newest Evil Dead movie finished, and they're like, "Oh, those are supposed to be funny." Dude, they're whatever people want them to be. like the first Evil Dead ain't real funny. Like it's in retrospect, and you kind of look at it now, okay, it's kind of, but the intention was not to be funny. The second one, Sam Raimi's interests were heavily into the Three Stooges and kind of that kind of stuff, cornball stuff. And so it's kind of, it's similar to what they did with Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, is he had already done kind of a serious, scary horror movie. So he went the opposite direction and did like kind of almost a satire of his own first movie. Evil Dead 2 is just like, we're going to turn it up to like 11 and just go bonkers and just have fun. And it is going to be a horror, gore, Three Stooges. And the third one just kind of made more of a mainstream version of that. But with the remake and Evil Dead Rise, they showed like, no, we're going to get back to the idea of the horror, because it's not, it's not real funny to have a demon take possession of you and just mutilate yourself and stuff. But the thing is too, is they can go at some point and make just a ridiculous movie. That's what I mean. That's the fun of that series. Not to get too far afield, but yeah, expectations with what people want is always kind of some kooky malooky there. But yeah, I hope they get the people with the right mindsets and heads on their shoulders when they bring back Freddy. And it would be great if Robert Englund was involved. And I've thrown out there my 3 cents on how you can do that. Blah blah blah. It's an older podcast. But I think we also have to get past the fact that, I mean, he's an older guy who doesn't, I guarantee doesn't want to do that makeup anymore and doesn't want those kind of hours anymore. So we have to look at like, who else could you get to do that? And just go from there. But yeah, so that was my entry into the who is. Just idea of the kind of thought process of like, when you think of Freddy, he is his appetite. He is this monstrous person who is a child murderer and an abuser, who was so outraged at his like being punished for his monstrosity that he returned from the dead to continue, like just like, how dare you, which is just so crazy. It's very crazy, and I wish it was something that the series kind of poked around with a little bit more. But it is what it is. And that was my little who is. I hope it wasn't too taxing. I got into like when you talk about Freddy and you're talking about it's some pretty dark material. I apologize. But yeah, so I thought it would be interesting. I hope you found it interesting. My name is Chris Ringler. I am your aforementioned Spooky Chris. I am an author, podcaster, movie reviewer, and above all else, a writer. You can find all of my books on my website, spookychris.com. All of my podcasts. I have started to do conversations with some really fascinating people, and those are great. And I have a blast with those, and I have more coming up. All of my movie reviews. I'm a big fan of found footage, so you can find tons of found footage movie reviews there. And just, my random thoughts about the world. And I hope you'll check it out at sweetchris.com. I will talk to you soon. I got a podcast, a conversation coming up this weekend with someone, so that would be my next one. So I'll talk to you soon. Take care.